Hey Steve, hey Red Pepper. Um, so we have one stock doing something today. GBUX. I'm sorry it's late today. I've had some things to deal with. ZJYL is also up a penny. I wouldn't get all excited about that, but that's something. Fingers down 7 cents. I would say there is. I got to be careful because I don't want to cause concern where I don't, with something I don't know anything about. But when you read some of the reaction to the Trump tariffs, there is mention that China is considering making it verboten for Chinese companies to invest in American companies. But then you read on, and they expect there'd be a lot of exceptions, and it'd be for new commitments. So I'm not sure that it really applies practically to Finger, but I would think that might be a reason there's a little selling today. But it's interesting. Finger is staying at the 140 level, 137.5, and if you didn't know any of the fundamental story, you would look at the charts and say, well, you expect that. It broke through 140 and it's coming back down here to test. And in many ways, it's normal. NIXI is down 14 cents at $1.69. We can go through it. NIXI had a news story, more of an update press release, and we can go through that. But it's clear to me, both in NIXI and then GBUX, and I suppose Railtown too. These stories have, I mean, unless they decide just not to follow on what their PRs, they have more news to give. And it should be within a week or 2 or 3, I would guess. Time's been clicking since they last updated, and they need to follow on with fulfillment or explanation of plans to complete what they already stated. GBUX is up $1.28 at 684, and I think that's fantastic. The volume is for their situ, the volume is reasonable. It's 37,000 shares. And then I've got to come what? Cum laude, clean, mea culpa. Logic, LGIQ, is trading on the expert market, and the former CEO had promised to me an update. I just heard word that he's received hundreds, I might be exaggerating, maybe it's 100, text messages and phone calls. I could read you my text message. It wasn't very nice. I mean, it wasn't mean, but I called it the way I see it. I think this med lab, which is going into Logic, is just the rest of the con that Aubrey Advisors initiated almost 3 years ago. But what I've heard on the good side, and I can't confirm it, and is that the company MedLab believes that they can get Logic compliant with whatever filings are necessary, and they can immediately leap to Adina Friedman's slaughterhouse, the NASDAQ. My guess is they'll do 100-for-1 reverse split, which is, nightmare. And I wouldn't blame anybody if they got out then. But the part that I liked hearing, which I can't confirm, is they have a lot of acquisitions lined up. Logic went from about 135 million shares. I was told originally by somebody close to the company that Logic's outstanding shares would decline to 95 or 85 million, something like that, in their original rearrangement. In fact, to my memory, because of Aubrey Advisors, let's be clear where the blame lies. It lies wholly with Aubrey Advisors and Chadron Financial Management. That's where it lies. They raised $5 million to give $2.5 million to the lawyers, to give $2.5 million to the financial advisors. They gave no money to Logic, and they gave no money to Collective Audience. This is billions and billions of dollar complex, this Polar, Aubrey Advisors, Chadron, and they could have raised enough money to make sure that Logic had the wherewithal to make its filings, but they didn't want to, because their real clients are the short sellers. Make no mistake about it. Aubrey Advisors, in my judgment, is as corrupt as Lynn Partners and the Kramer brothers. But they're on the board of Collective Audience, so I'm sure they're great guys. Anyway, Logic now has 750 million shares. So don't get your hopes up that there's going to be any miracle here. This is a blunder of magnificent proportions by management at Logic at the end of the day. I don't know who did it. I don't think it was Brent, but by selecting Aubrey Advisors in the first place. But what did they know? Yeah, that's the problem. CEOs shouldn't have to know that the whole bloody place is corrupt. Anyway, I would guess, if anything, Logic can get to, it's going to try to get to $1 to be on NASDAQ. So how's it going to get there? It's at a penny. I mean, almost anyone can figure that one out. A 1 for 100 reverse split. And then what do the jerks do? They get to take away 99% of their money from shorting without a closing transaction, without paying taxes. I'm telling you, Aubrey Advisors and Chadron are corrupt. And so are the lawyers that work with them. And so is Polar. It makes me so angry. It just makes me so angry, because I know a lot of you lost money in Logic. I lost a shitload in Logic, and I relied in particular on information I was getting from the company and somebody close to the company who doesn't speak to me anymore, because I called out what was going on, particularly in the case of Collective Audience. And people react differently. He's a good guy, but he he sees it that there's systems in place. There are no systems in place. Oh, that you don't know what that trading is. You see that they might have sold without locating the stock, but you don't know they might have bought it back later. You can't tell. He's an apologist. He's an apologist. And it's a shame. He doesn't mean ill. He doesn't mean ill. Doesn't mean ill. Oh, the algorithms just have to get if you get the stock price in, the logarithms will kick in, and the stock. I said bullshit. That stock's going to a penny. But anyway, so both stocks go to a penny. It's right in front of everybody's eyes. Oh, now they got new management. They're going to bring it. They're going to get on the NASDAQ. 1 for 100 reverse split. Same from collective audience. It is a way so the Aubrey advisors can finish off the crime they started 2.5 years ago. But they sit in glass offices, drive whatever's the exciting car now, bang their secretary, go home to their wife, have kids in college, and they get their glossy photographs on the internet. They're just crooks. Anyway, let's get off of Aubrey advisors. After all, they just got off of their mothers. So GBUX is up 129 on 38,000 shares. This could be a prelude to a thrill. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. And let me just see where the markets are. The gentleman yesterday, I forget his name, came on and said Christian investors or something had been calling for a market crash in April. Turns out he was prescient. The Dow is down 3.86% at 40,500. NASDAQ is down 5.84%, down 1,000 points. S&P is down 5% to 5,400. I think I don't remember what I was. I have a stack of notebooks over there, but I think the Dow will go to 60,000, 65,000. I think the NASDAQ can go to 25,000. I think the S&P can go to 7,500, even 8,000. And I still think that's what's coming. It's a risky call. It's the last, hey, Ma, give me one more chance. Lend me a little bit. I want to get back in there. It's the last move in a 40. Somebody told me when it began. When it began, I have no way of knowing. But it's still going strong. August of 82. So August of 82, if we go to August of 83, that's 43-year bull market. That's most of my life. Most of yours. You have not seen a bear market. You haven't seen it for 43 years. And the brain, our brains, the human brain, even our emotions, our experiences, we should be looking forward, but we tend to look backward in our reaction to things. And my understanding, I never studied the dark sciences of therapy and Freud and etc. It seemed to all come down to I am jealous you have a penis, and then if you have a penis, you're envious of somebody else's penis. It seemed like the whole Freudian uh, thought process, and it shows up in your subconscious. Anyway, uh, we look forward based on our experience, as I understand it, of the last basically 2 years. And so our experiences are going to tell us this world of US supremacy, the dollar strength, the ability to go down to the supermarket 10 times a day. You don't have to think ahead. You can always buy dog food at the last minute. You can buy your iodine just when you need it. If there's a cut, you can. You've got friends coming over. Just zip over to Giant and buy the steaks at the last minute. That whole lifestyle, it may go on for a while longer, might go on for years longer, but it's our grandparents, great grandparents went through a depression, and our we focus in this country rightly on how awful it was and evil it was for slaves and slavery. That was terrible. I like how Martin Luther King includes the slave owners in that prison, because it's true. The whole thing is evil. But we forget, when we focus on that a lot of the rest of America, skin like mine, barely made it. They barely made money. They scrounged. They took any job. They hopped the rails. It wasn't an easy life. And then, of course, I think it was Thomas Hobbes that said that life is brutish, short, and nasty, something like that. It's not that long ago that children and families worked in sweatshops and barely got by. What changed everything for literally all of our lives and our parents' lives, most of our parents' lives, what changed, I think, was the idea of the United States. And we have good ideas, but also our bounty. And we were the last woman standing after World War II. Rosie the Riveter. We had our industry. So we created the financial system. The banksters moved in. The rocket scientists moved in. The ad men moved in. And for literally 80 years, 90 years, we've lived a life of just unbelievable wealth and privilege. And I think it's all races. Yes, there's striations of the experience, but compared to the rest of the world, we have lived relatively well. There's one other part of it. The United States has lived on a sea of oil. It started in Titusville. Oil's been around forever. It's probably what made the what do you call the not sirens, there's a different word for it, the women that predicted the future in ancient Greece and others. They probably got high on the smell of natural gas seeping through the soil. Who knows? But it's had that use. It's had the use in in battle, in probably in construction, maybe in health. But it was in the United States that oil was first turned to kerosene for lighting by Rockefeller. And he consolidated the refineries, I guess, in Cleveland, Ohio. But he really also took the rails. Rails were a big change, and oil was transported by the rails in wooden barrels. That's why they talk about barrels of oil. But oil was for lighting. It was for kerosene. I've mentioned the book before. One of the best books I ever read for just jolting me out of my self-satisfaction, I guess, of life. But there's a book called A World Lit Only by Fire, A World Lit Only by Fire. And I think it was about the 12th century or so, 13th century. But imagine a world where you go to sleep as soon as the sun goes down. Unless you have an outdoor fire, you might hang out there. You might have candles from beef tallow or something like that. And then I guess eventually whale oil. But that was life for probably all of the time we understand that our brains can go back. But what Rockefeller came up with is kerosene. Others did too, but he consolidated it, and they sold kerosene for the lamps. You know, the old movies when they bring in one lamp, turn it on, and the whole room goes as bright as a modern office. And that expanded Americans. It mostly was in America. It was somewhat in Europe, but expanded the day. It allowed people to read, educate themselves, to work longer hours, and that started in. I can't remember when Titusville was. The Colonel Drake drilled his oil well. I want to say 1861, but I could be off by a decade. I don't think I am. I think it was around then, 1859 maybe. And the other thing that happened, and that was from Europe too, but there was invention of machines, and we had oil. We had oil, and Ford came in the turn of the century. It wasn't long after that Wilbur and Orville Wright figured out how to fly. The cotton gin came in, which saved many backs and lives. Damn it. And other inventions, machine shops, saws, all this. And the driving force behind it was Earl. Coal was there, but it was all oil. Our population expanded. When we came back from the war, we lived in suburbs, and our life was glorious, all on oil. We won the war. The World War I and World War II was won on Texas oil. Pipelines, I think Roosevelt built them right up to New Jersey. Standard Oil of New Jersey. That was our life, oil. Our life is oil. It's allowed women to pretend to be as physically strong as men, because you don't need physical strength to succeed in a world of machines, police officers, laws, and judges and all that. But you need a car to be there when you dial 911. You need it to be there in 5 minutes. Oil, gasoline, oil, oil, oil. And if I had one, I'd say it as a friend. I have one disagreement with Trump, and it's not that on this issue, I mean. I have a couple other things, as you know. But it's not that he's wrong in trying. I just think we have to rebuild our economy to make our oil last longer. And we don't need to consume it on Route 66. We don't need to. We can live differently. We were given this peak oil stuff that I haven't really talked to you about, has been around a long time, but it got particularly strong about 15, 20 years ago. And then all of a sudden, George Mitchell, there was a young man in his office. George Mitchell's company almost went broke twice. There's a young man in his office who came up with the idea of using, I almost want to say water, but he came up with how to frack. And that set off this great shale revolution in the United States. But imagine if we had taken that oil and built downtowns, small towns, and allowed people to own automobiles, but maybe you can only drive automobiles. There's different ways you could construct this, but maybe you can only drive your automobile between towns. But when you're in the city or you're in your town, you hop these electrified transport, or you walk, or maybe there are buses or whatever that use diesel. But we could have planned a world where we didn't consume as much oil. And Trump wants us to go back to a time I just don't think there's enough oil for. But it's better than where we are. So, and the markets, if we had free markets, we could design new ways of living. But we're not. I've told you, out in Virginia, I visited a friend. We're still building brand new suburbs. That's the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. It shouldn't be the 2020s. But anyway, let's move on from that. Sorry. The markets are closing. GBUX is the only green on my screen. Well, ZJYL is up 0.002. But GBUX looks like it right now is trading at $7. So I wonder what's going on there. 676 to 711 bid-ask spread. Anyway, our lives are going to be changing, and it's not that it's going to be that we're going to be deprived. We just can't waste as much. That's how I see it. We can't squander our resources as much. But I think we'll still listen to stereos and still have nice clothes compared to, 200 years ago. We'll still have indoor plumbing. We'll still have air conditioning, all those things. I can spend all this time thinking about what's going to come. The single thing you need to own that will jumpstart your investment portfolio and move you from this kind of malaise and hopelessness we all feel. I feel it too. To feeling like you have some power and you have some control is silver. It's silver. I think silver is going to be $100 overnight. Now, if you're going to take me literally, it's going to be tomorrow morning, that's not what I'm saying. But one day, you're going to go, oh my gosh, my, my 10 grand used to buy whatever, what's 100 ounces now? $3,500. My 10 grand used to buy 300 ounces. Now my 10 grand only buys 100 ounces. But imagine if you owned 100 ounces of silver, cost, I don't know what it costs. I haven't done it recently, but let's say it costs $3,500 to buy that. And all of a sudden it's worth 12 grand overnight. You're going to feel like, wow, I'm better off. And you might start using that 12 grand. I would just stick with silver, but we might, and I think we'll have the miners as well, oil and gas. But the 12 grand is more than 3,500, obviously, but it's more also in this sense. You can picture 12 grand going up 10x. It might not do it all in one move. You might have to try other things. But I had a boss used to tell me, it's the first 100,000 that's the hardest part. I always thought waiting was the hardest part. Anyway, $7 on GBUX. All right, let me see what else. I'll go from the bottom up. Bill Michael, some geologists believe oil is a natural byproduct of the inner earth and will last forever. It was Rockefeller who coined the phrase fossil fuel to a news reporter to portray scarcity. That's true. The last part of that's true. And there's always, for 100 years, there's always been this argument that we're going to run out of oil. Well, run out of inexpensive oil. There'll always be oil. It's just we'll run out of the I don't know if I want to go into the concept of energy in, energy out, but we'll run out of the inexpensive oil. There are a lot of people that believe that. My brother worked at McKinsey and Co. for many years in the energy department. My father was always proud that the dean at Georgetown Business School told him that your brother was the first graduate that got Georgetown Business School into McKinsey. But my brother shares your view. I think it's flaky. Not you, but I think the view is flaky. Because it's an organic material, but so I don't know what process in the middle of the earth would create oil. But, I'm not saying I'm a scientist, so you might be right. I do know every field that's ever been discovered peaks and then declines, and that's every field. Including it will happen. I think one day it'll be all at once at the Garwar field. But the big Russian field, the Prudhoe Bay, they all peak and then they all inevitably decline. And I think we found all the easy to find oil. There might be some in the deep Arctic Sea, but I can't imagine that's classified as inexpensive oil, even if it's found. No, it's been a nature's bounty. The North Sea oil. The UK had a bunch of oil, and Maggie Thatcher said, "Let's have a party," and it's gone. It's gone. They just had a big party. It lasted a few, a few generations. Not the entirety of each generation, but it lasted what, 60 years. Oil is definitely not from dinosaurs. Well, um, that'd be nice to find out. You guys, I'm not saying you guys are wrong. I mean, I always try to listen to all points of view, and the one that's unnerving me the most right now is it doesn't look like the Big Bang ever happened either. Something happened maybe, but it wasn't the Big Bang, or it wasn't the Big Bang as we thought, because they found 7 or 12 galaxies back at the dawn of time that shouldn't be there. So it's, yeah, they're all theories where oil comes from, and you might be right. Maybe oil's there to grease the big continental shelves and keep the earth from keep the earth the rocks moving. But I don't think so. I think oil is formed with heat at depth, and the whole reason some is oil and some is natural gas and the rest is liquids is different variations of that heat. But I don't know. What happened before the Big Bang? Well, in my case, my dad met my mother. They don't know. They don't know. And I try to listen to it, but if I understand Sir Roger Penrose well, which I don't, but it seems like he thinks it's a cyclical thing where one universe grows and then another one and another one. So it might be another universe back there. There's an idea that our universe is inside of a black hole, and maybe we came out of a black hole. I don't know. They don't have an answer for why there's fully formed galaxies at the beginning of time. And talk about an idea which you say Rockefeller came up with fossil fuel. I think it was one of the Catholic Church guys that came up with what became known as the Big Bang because there'd be a creator. There'd be a creator. So it fit with theology. And it doesn't make me afraid of believing in God if it turns out there's something else about the universe. There's a lot of theories out there that can take you into la la land about what the universe is. But one woman thinks we're in a kind of like a bubble, so that what we think is expansion, I forget, because we also think the universe is expanding, and apparently, and that it has a constant in that movement, but apparently that's being called into question. And it wouldn't surprise me. This is, we have what, 4 senses, 5 senses, 6 senses, and some of you are senseless. Just kidding. and we're trying to think about what the universe is, and we're we're looking through this massive our own galaxy that blocks the view and the Milky Way, and we're trying to see back into the beginnings of time. So even the whole idea of space-time is being called into question. I did not study physics, but I kind of wish I had. I wouldn't have liked the math part about it. I don't think the arithmetic. Well, not the arithmetic, the math, this math theory, but it is interesting. But anyway, whatever. You didn't tune in about. They hear about that. No Big Bang. Well, I know where the Big Bang happened in my existence, Savannah, Georgia. Ugh. I said, Dad, that's too much information, more than I need to know. I'm most surprised that ice core samples show CO2 was much higher than our times now. Oh, you're. I have a friend who agrees with you. Almost 100% of my friends in the oil and gas industry agree with you. And I bought the top 3 guys at Netherlands Sewell and Associates. I bought them my 3 favorite climate change books, and I sent them, had them back before Amazon. I had it. They weren't impressed. We're still friends. There's no problem, but they weren't impressed. When Big JR, I don't think it's a question of was there a time in Earth's history where CO2 was 400 or 500 parts per million in the atmosphere, maybe higher. I think the real question is, which atmosphere, what composition of atmosphere can human beings exist? I think that's the question. I have no problem with your thoughts that years ago, there was eons ago, CO2 was massive. I wish I had my book here by Eric Rostoff, I think. The title was Carbon. It's a fascinating book. It's not political. He takes the reader, me, on a journey from the Big Bang all the way to the present day. But it's carbon was formed, but I think it was the 3rd element formed in his telling. And it was either hydrogen or helium, one of those. But it was alcohol. I remember that. I was like, wow, alcohol was formed. But anyway, I'll get that book at some point. But I think that what allowed mice to grow into human beings, if you believe in I think there's something wrong with the Darwin theory too. It doesn't explain, for example, eyesight, to me anyway, and it doesn't explain. It might. I don't know. Again, I'm not a scientist, but it seems like all animals start out, we almost look the same when we're just formed. It's weird. So it's like somebody designed a way to create us from scratch, and then I don't know. Anyway, CO2 came out of the atmosphere by plants, basically. And it got buried in the coal seams of the world. And it was only after forever that our atmosphere became mostly oxygen. Not mostly, enough oxygen that we can breathe. Anyway, and right now, Big JR, I cannot remember the guy's name, but on a mountain or a volcano in Hawaii in 1956 or something, he started measuring every day uh, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And we've gone from, I don't remember, it's the magnitude I remember. I used to know these numbers. We've gone from 125 or 150 parts per million, maybe 110, I can't remember. We're over 425 parts per million of carbon dioxide. And, China has a good argument. Well, you put it in the air. Well, really, the Brits did. It was the Industrial Revolution was based on coal. And carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for 200 years. And it's all complicated, of course. But I think the answer is to leave the coal in the ground. I don't think it is to tell people not to burn oil or burn natural gas. But there's people, many of my friends think I've lost my gasket on this because there's bigger forces than human beings. But I think even the most rational human being can recognize that if we've put 300 parts per million of carbon into the atmosphere from 100 or 150, it's an experiment. We can at least agree on that. It's an experiment. I mean, you might say, well, nothing's going to happen. And I might say, well, it already has, because I remember when there was snow in DC in the winter, and it never happens anymore, which is just anecdotal. So we could, have a debate, but we can at least agree that it's an experiment caused by human activity. James Lovelock, who finally died, a Scotsman. He's a Scotsman. He was one of the scientists that discovered the ozone hole and put through the was it the Montreal Protocol, which got rid of fluorocarbons in our underarm deodorant and in our refrigerators and in our air conditioners, and the whole year in. Remember that movie, Leaving Las Vegas? Powerful movie. His life is going down, kind of like mine has been, but his life is going from it's a big margin call on his life. And he sells everything, and he moves from the fancy hotel he was staying in to the whole year inn, a cheap place to live for the whole year. And he was drunk, and his eyes, he starts looking at it, and it says, the whole you're in. Anyway, I remember that. So that distracted me from my point on James Lovelock. But the ozone hole largely has been cured, but it comes back, and it comes back in the North Pole as well. And it's what protects us. But it's, life goes on. It's not a question of whether the planet will be here. And James Lovelock came up with the idea of Gaia, calling the planet a living organism. And then when you read more deeply into his thoughts, as I recall, this is me translating and trying to remember what I read. It wasn't so much that he thought the planet is a living entity as that he thought the planet behaves like one big organism. And as an example, if I can get this right, in the summer, the northern hemisphere breathes out oxygen, and in the winter, it inhales because of the growth in vegetation, as an example that I remember. But in that context, it's quite possible that the planet, and he said it doesn't matter that it's actually alive or not. You don't have to get into all that with the like it has a consciousness, but it behaves that way. And uh, he thought that, and others too, it wasn't just he, that the planet might get rid of us. Just make sure we're not there. So it can go back to its eons of finding balance and living, you know. But you know, he also gave up in the end, and he said, "Look, it's already too late, so we should live in the cities, and we should." And he didn't. By the way, when he gave up, it wasn't in without optimism. But this is a man. His projection was that the future for humankind was 200 million human pairs that, and I think it was 100 million pairs, so 200 million people living in the Arctic or the Antarctic. That was the future coming. And anyway, he said we should live in our cities and get air conditioning. The planet is going to get bloody hot, but we just have to adapt to what's coming. And I think that's true. I don't think there's much we can do. But it's scary stuff, Big JR. I sure hope you're right. The entire western part of the United States and large parts of the country east of the Mississippi, the sand underneath, there's huge sand dunes underneath. They're held together by the soil above, and the roots and the insects and the worms and the I forget what it's called, but all those miniature animals that you can't see except with a microscope. There's a name for them. I think I'm turning into Joe Biden. But as the temperature goes up, they die. They die. And then just there's huge parts of the country that become desert. I'm not saying that's going to happen in our lifetime, but I suppose it could. The oceans, which are a carbon sink. And one argument is that as we've poured carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, there's been a pause. And I haven't studied it in 15 years. I had other things to worry about. And it's scary. It makes you not want to sleep at night, or makes you want to knock yourself out permanently. But as the carbon in the atmosphere went up and up, the oceans had to start absorbing carbon. And this is why the coral reefs die and all that. Also heat, also the oceans warm up. But the oceans are massive, of course. And do they have more room? That's a debate. But the oceans some think have reached the saturation point. So now there'll be an acceleration in carbon in the atmosphere back to the time in when I think it went up to 700 parts per million or higher. My numbers, it's the magnitude that matters, not the exact numbers, because I can't remember. And so uh, 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 we may test your theory pretty soon. The other completely unrelated to James Lovelock is that our source of oxygen in this world comes from the trees, which we destroy with abandon. But if fires happen in forests, we're going to lose that. But half of our oxygen comes from the plankton and smaller little animals that baleen whales and other fish eat in volumes. And I just wonder what happens as the radiation from Fukushima spreads throughout the world. Do those organisms die or do they adapt? But, these are all experiments. And, as human beings, we can study information, form our opinions with our five senses, and those of us who are senseless, and guys like me who know everything. But it won't matter. It's all going to unfold before us. And so Lovelock's point was, we just have to adapt to what's coming. There's another interesting book, the name of which I cannot remember right now, it's only about 7 chapters, and it's about what's coming for the world. And the 2 things I remember about it most of all, I'd love to read it again. It's in storage. Is that the Russian scientists, or some of the Russian scientists anyway, have this idea, and I think it's true. I don't know why they make it up, that our solar system, and in fact our whole, it's possible our whole galaxy, but our solar system is going now through a thicker part of space. So that's slowing down the sun's movement, and it's backing the sun up a little bit, so that we're going to be closer to the sun somehow, and that could heat up the Earth. Of course, there's another theory that the solar minimum's going on, so we could be in for an ice age. I mean, the ideas are too big to keep track of. All I can tell you is and I think it was Lovelock that used the example of Greenland. I think it's the Little Dryas. I think it was back at the time of Hans Christian Andersen. But anyway, people had gone to live on Greenland, and they set up Christian churches, of course, the ones that God isn't there. No, I'm kidding. They set up Lutheran churches and Protestant churches. And I don't know if I'm mixing 2 periods of time, because maybe the Little Dryas or whatever was much longer. But anyway, in our recent history, people lived on Greenland. And he pointed out, I think he's an atheist, that people would go pray to make sure the ice, the winter and the snow didn't stayed away from their town. But God wasn't listening, he said. Whoever wrote this, it might not have been Lovelock. And they had to leave Greenland. That's what's going to come if we don't acknowledge that there's an experiment going on. We won't adapt, and we have to be ready to adapt. I talked about it the other day, but the Gulf Stream stopped back in time, and it was probably 11 or 12,000 years ago and to mix in Graham Hancock and Carson, what's his first name? Carson, can't remember his first name, and some others, but their idea is that the giant ice caps that were on North America, Europe, and elsewhere, but particularly North America and Europe, that approximately 11,000, almost 12,000 years ago, meteors and comets came, hit the Earth, and melted that volume of ice almost in geologic terms instantaneously, and the water got blocked behind ice dams. And Carlson, I'm trying to remember he's still interesting to listen to. He's on Joe Rogan. I don't like watching Joe Rogan. I don't find him all that I don't find his questions interesting, or I don't know. Maybe it's because he can kick my ass or something. But I don't like watching Rogan. But these guys, Randall Carlson. But Randall Carlson believes, and he goes out to prove it, that when the ice dam broke and the water rushed down, that the Grand Canyon and many parts of the West were created in a matter of weeks or months. Just these huge volumes of water came sluicing through. And Graham Hancock, I think, agrees with it. He was part of that interview. But Hancock's view is, as that water melted with these things from the sky, he also thinks it's possible that the thing that fell into Saudi Arabia, that's now Mecca, might be from that. I don't want to be sacrilegious. I'm just saying it's one of his ideas. That the water, the fresh water, when it broke, hit the salty cold water of the North Atlantic and stopped the Gulf Stream essentially instantaneously. Something sticks in my head about 5,000 years, but I don't remember the point of the 5,000 years. But that's nothing in geologic time. So anyway, I read another study, well written, about a group of people who got into boats and went north of Scotland and north in the, I don't know where the Scarpa flow is, but north of the UK, north of Denmark, up in the North Sea. And what happens is the hot water from the Caribbean obviously rises, and then the Earth is spinning, but the hot water is going north in this current, and as it's spinning, it bends towards Europe. But it's at the surface, and this hot water hits the cold water up off of Maine and Newfoundland. That's why all the fishermen go there. That's why that Perfect Storm book was better than the movie. But that's where all the bounty of fish are, the hot water with the cold seas. But anyway, they tracked the hot water goes up there, collides with the cold water, which is I don't know which has more salt in it. The hot water evaporates. I forget. I would guess that the hot water has more salt in it than the cold, but that's just a guess. But what happens as the hot water gets up there, it cools, and it might be that it gets more salt, so it's heavier, but it goes down, and it's like your bathtub. It goes down in these funnels. And when this group went up, I want to say in the 90s, it might have been in the 80s, they found 40 or 50 or 60 of these funnels. They went up just about 5 years ago, 7 years ago, they found two. They found two. So it's possible that this Gulf Stream in our lifetimes will stop. And you got to think about what does that mean? The Gulf Stream is what's made Europe they've lived in the green garden of the planet for hundreds, thousands of years, and it's kept it moderate. Well, if that stops, what happens to Europe? What happens to New York? What happens to Canada? Are we as cold as Moskva? I don't know, but these are big experiments, and I don't think listening to the crap that Exxon and the rest put out there with their lobbyists does justice to the reality that it's a gigantic experiment that we're on. But anyway, I sure hope you're right. Having said all that, I sure hope you're right. It would be a good time to end on Jim Hanson's view. I went to a bar back when I would go to bars to have dinner, a nice bar. The guy that owns Cafe Milano started sort of a sister chain of Italian eateries. And when the one in DuPont Circle opened up, it used to get quite a bit of custom. And I was there one night. It was crowded. I think the football was on, the World Cup or something. I was sort of sitting at the end of the bar. I think there was a friend next to me. But what I remember is this woman came up, dressed really well. She happened to be African American, but she worked for George W. Bush in the White House. And I had that book by James Hansen, and I had it. I was reading it, so I must have been alone. I was reading it. She came up to talk to me. I just closed the book, and then I started talking to her. She said, "Oh, I work for the White House." I said, "Oh, what part?" "Well, I'm in something with Goddard or something like that." So I turned the book over. I didn't want to have an argument. And she said, "Oh, what are you reading?" And I showed it to her. And I said, "This is written by Dr. James Hansen, who got in trouble with the Clinton administration's gotten in trouble with Bush. He is the head of the Goddard anyway, the office up in Maryland. I forget the name of it right now. And he's written this book about climate change." And her face just turned up. She goes, "Oh, oh, oh, he's a scientist." I said, "Yes, he's a scientist." She said, we don't listen to scientists." I said, "Oh, okay. All right. You don't, that's all right. Let's talk about something else. So, Jim Hansen wrote a whole book called The Storms of My Grandchildren, and I recommend it. It's frightening. But he had solutions at the end. I've told them to you before. 4 solutions. One, uh, stop destroying the trees. Stop destroying the jungles and the forests. By the way, James Lovelock believes that. James Lovelock almost was grateful for Chernobyl's accident because he thinks that creates a sanctuary where nature can grow, trees can grow, and he believes we need to leave that Lovelock, that human beings should live on a third of the planet and leave 2/3 of it to the animals and the trees. I don't have a problem with that. But anyway, Hansen said trees. Secondly, leave the remaining coal in the ground. Don't burn any more coal. Thirdly was all of the slivers, conservation, all of the renewables, solar, wind, all of that. Do all of all of those slivers. And then his fourth thing was next generation nuclear power, the 4th generation nuclear power plants, which I have a lot of trepidation about. But anyway, that was his solution, those 4 things. And he says he says, notice, I did not tell you that you have to stop burning oil or stop burning natural gas, because you won't, and we won't. It's too good. So anyway, it's a long riff on all that. We can't do anything about it, and I hope you're right, Big JR. I hope you're right. Who's ripping you a new asshole? Yeah, I think the East will rise again, John Doe. Economically, I think what's happening, the financial markets are a creation by the West. I don't know how far you have to go back. Italy, Holland. I forget where the corporation was invented, if it was in Holland or in the UK, but the invention of the corporation was a Western thing, and that changed the world. The tulip bubble, the South Sea bubble, for example. Cotton is probably the most important industry in the world you've never thought about, but it did a lot of human damage. But it's all the creation of the corporation. Anyway, that's very Western, and the financial system is very Western. And I think what's happening is gold is moving, physical gold is moving to the east. And silver is about to follow. And the human desire to own gold and not lose gold is starting to happen in Western banks, in the central banks, where they used to be comfortable leasing the gold, and they still apparently are, and then taking that money and investing it in treasury bonds or whatever, or treasury shorter term. Leveraging, of course, the modern financial genius is to leverage everything. The banks are getting less and less comfortable, and the owners of that gold, when you lease out your gold, you don't own it until the lease is over. And anyway, let me not go off on a long story. I want to answer questions, but I think gold is moving to the east, silver too, and I think you're going to see Eastern countries rise again. I don't know if Eastern culture will, but I think it's a terrible thing if you I never read Shogun. I should have, but I never read it. But Japan, thousands of years I guess, pretty brutal life in some ways, but of a gorgeous island. I think it's been destroyed by the Western culture in less than 100 years. And quite literally, if my understanding of what happened at Fukushima Daiichi is accurate, you can't live in Japan. You can't live in Tokyo. So it's kind of depressing. But anyway, let me go with this guy. I think logic. I don't trust logic, and logic is my largest position. I think it's a big con job. Let me show you PS71. So I'm going to show you the negative, but I'm also going to tell you what I hear. But let me show you that. Well, before I do that, let me go to the top questions quickly. Hi. Silver got hammered. I love it. I love it. I love it. I hope it stays down until I have money to buy it. I love silver getting hammered. Smoot is replaying Smoot Hawley. Do you think it's going to work out well? Well, I think that's dripping with, I don't know about sarcasm, but your point of view. I've got an article I'll read. Let me write that down. I'm going to show you an article in a second. I don't think Smoot Hawley was the issue. I really don't. It was part of it, of course. But the Great Depression was caused by the collapse of capital, and I don't think tariffs had anything to do with that. It may be a little bit on the margin, but tariffs in and of themselves are a one-off. You adjust your thinking once. And to me, it's just a tax. It's like a value-added tax. And the rest of the world charges us tariffs. So I get his thinking. Why do we have to pay more for German cars or Canadian lumber? Why? I don't know. But I have an article I'll read about that. I just want to quickly answer this other question. Hey, John. Hey, Barbara. Please don't sign off. All right. I'm a jerk off? Well, I've been called worse. Fight. You have Trump in America. You down world move one. You left, you back. Hi. Must be a song. GBUX looks good, yes. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Ralph not trading. I think that's good. I look like a guy who's going to light a fuse tomorrow. I am the fuse. I am the fuse. Let's retire and learn how to short and buy puts. Yeah, buy puts. You can't short unless you have a lot of money. But cut spending via Doge, increase revenues via tariffs, gold Visa card, etc. Well, you mean the gold immigration visa is correct, but you're not talking about a MasterCard Visa card. You're talking about, yeah, correct. Create domestic manufacturing, lower taxes. It could work, and we have population. Uh, uh, I only 5%, 45% more downs for the market. Oh God. I don't know. What do you just get up to try to, were you the schoolyard bully or something? It's not even interesting, you know? The market could go down 45%. I think we're at the point now where the rubber band has pulled back far enough in a correction, and we're going to see the market go up like you have never seen. But it's predicated on human behavior and probably some intervention again by the Fed to save the banks or save hedge funds. You know, the hedge funds, the big hedge funds, the Finks, the Blacks, they're too big to fail now. And so I think that's my opinion. We're going to have the blow off top to a secular bull market that went on longer than your schoolyard bullshit ever can. It went on for it seemed, you know, I guess it's 43 years. I can't argue with that. Since 1982. And it's not over with, in my opinion. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But I don't think markets collapse when everyone's calling for it. And everyone's calling for it. Everyone's saying we're going down. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Could you be right, even though you're a DAC? Absolutely. Thank you for your comment, Sagi. Oil is from slimy politicians. I talked about that. If space is a vacuum, how do thrusters work on spacecraft? Well, Bill, I think thrusters work getting out of the atmosphere. And maybe space isn't totally a vacuum either. But I think a lot of spacecraft movement is based on gravity and momentum. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. Could it be in a vacuum, you don't need much? So it's just the movement of gas from one side of the spacecraft out creates enough movement. But how is that creating the movement? It's an interesting thought. I'm going to have to see. All right, Big JR, I can your side. What I've researched, dinosaurs breathed oxygen, and oxygen levels were similar to now, although they may not breathe. Um, why were they so big? I mean, the atmosphere must have been thicker or something. Maybe there wasn't as much gravity. I don't know. But I always thought the oxygen ratio was smaller back then. I don't know. All right, two questions. Oxygen in dinosaurs and thrusters in space. Darwin theory, complete crap. Yeah, I'm not sure it's right. But I'm also not sure. I'm not saying, anyway, I'm just saying, I'm not that egotistical believe man can control the atmosphere. Well, that's true. Lovelock predicted that the Americans would try to control the atmosphere. We would come up with, for example, big screens to put between the Earth and the sun to slow down the amount of heat. Uh, and it turns out we do try to manipulate. I agree with you that the planet is bigger than we are. Um, we've had a big effect. We've killed millions of species, and we've concentrated our food into just a few kinds, and I mean, it's like the avocado almost went extinct, except they found some in the jungle in Mexico, luckily, and they could cross it, and we got it. But we're doing that in a lot of our food and fish and all that. So we're experimenting. I think we're big enough to make huge impacts on the earth. And when we were in tribes, we would probably destroy where we were, pick up our tents, and move to a fresh new place and destroy that and move on. And the problem is the earth is the only thing we have right now. I do agree with you. I think, there's people who believe that there was a civilization on Mars. I have no way of knowing. And even there's one guy, a doctor out there that thinks there's traces of whatever, tritium or something. It's something that only comes from nuclear war. That may be true. I don't know. But my point is that Mars continues. If it's true, there were some sort of civilization on Mars. I don't know. I'm not commenting on that. I'm just saying hypothetically, if there were a population there and they killed themselves with nuclear bombs, hypothetically. Well, it didn't kill Mars. Mars is still there. And I assume Mars still has chemical processes and other slow moving events going on that in 1,000,000 years, 10 million years, 100 million years, you know, a monkey might write Hamlet. I don't know, but I do think we're big enough to affect the environment on our planet. I do think we have that effect. I don't think we're big enough to kill the planet, but we might destroy what makes the planet hospitable to us. I mean, I often, when I walk in a big city with skyscrapers, even downtown here, what if the new normal is storms of 200, 250 mile per hour winds that gust to 300, 350 miles per hour? How many of these skyscrapers are going to be safe? So you're right. We're not that big when it comes to the power of nature. But I mean, either way, Big JR, I don't think it's worth arguing about it more than just as ideas, because personally, I think we've already crossed the point of no return. And we'll see. And hopefully you're right that it won't change anything. And hopefully I'm completely wrong that it could. But in any event, we're going to have to adapt, and we're good at adapting. Human beings are. GBUX, Avatar. I never saw Avatar. Hey, PS71. Yes, it's still in limbo. Still in limbo, but I hope we're getting closer. But the stress is every day, and I get a lot of pressure back and forth from. But yeah, I think it's going to end soon, and I'm excited. I mean, everything's positive, but yes is the answer. Amoeba. I haven't talked about GBUX. I won't see it in 30 hours. Lots of laughs. And then when he does, he rips me a new asshole. Kind of fun and funny when he does. Should I bring up MMTLP as I moved my shares, except for one? But that one is going to screw it up for everybody. No, I'm kidding. E-Trade doesn't show it anymore. It's gone poof. Is that right? Ah, that they're going to say anything under 100 shares doesn't exist. They could do that. They could do that. They could just, the court could, or the brokerage firm could say, we'll send you some cash. We'll return your money. Update on Finger, anything. Do you think EJEV is looking ready? Finger, my Studio 6, okay. How does it stay at 7 and not move? Logic. All right, I want to talk about what I think about logic. Um, uh, Oxygen is in the fuel. Yeah, but why? I think the guy's got a good point. What is the thruster thrust against? If it's a vacuum, what does it push against? My guess is it's not a vacuum. But it is a vacuum. I don't know. I don't know. CEO Ryan Cohen just bought 500,000 shares of GameStop with the money with the money with the money he gets from the company, with the money he gets through the back door from the shorts, every financing that happens. Uh, I'm being a jerk, but I'm sorry. How many shares does Ryan Cohen own of? All right, GBUX is $7. Nixie is up in the aftermarkets, 172. Finger is up in the aftermarket, 0.03. And the key to Finger, let me see if there's a chart so I can show it to you. Yeah, I guess there is. Ugh, I hate these new ads. All right, let me see if I can. It'd be better if I did it on here. Anyway, I'll just tell you. Finger, it broke out when it broke out above the 50-day and 20-day moving average. And it did that at about $1.33. And then the 20-day moving average moved up. It did a bullish cross. And so that 20-day moving average went all the way up to $1.42, and Finger went and challenged the 200-day moving average at 181. Well, everything has a pullback. So they pulled it back first to the 20-day moving average at 142, which is support. That it was resistance, but it became support for 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally the fifth time. Now I might be over numerating it. They were able, let me see if I can, the ad isn't coming, so maybe I can take a picture. My handwriting is so bad. Okay, here's my little, okay, just get bigger. This is my little picture on Finger. So Finger, this line here, this uptrending line was support as I saw it. And then the resistance is where this horizontal yellow line is. To my count, that's once, twice, 3, 4, and this is the fifth time. You could leave that small one out, and it could be once, twice, 3, and this was the fourth time. And it broke through 141, and it went up to the 200-day moving average of 181. It met resistance. Look back here. Once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. And, oh, I see. You're not seeing me. Once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. That's resistance. And then the Roth deal came and knocked it down. But this is resistance up here at 181. So it pulled back. Support became the 20-day moving average for a little while. And then they brought it down to the 50-day moving average. That's one area of support. Those were resistance. Look, they were resistance, resistance, resistance. Up here, they were resistance, resistance, resistance. But once it busted through, they become support, support. The other thing is this 140 range, 141 range, it tried to get through. Resistance, tried to get through. Resistance, tried to get through. Resistance, tried to get through. Resistance. And boom! Will you love me? Will you love me forever? Will you need me? Will you need me forever? Gotta know right now. Do you love me? Let me sleep on it. Baby, baby, let me sleep on it. He's on third base. He's rounding third. He's coming into home. Oh, baby, baby, let me sleep on. I'll give you an answer in the morning. I've got to know right now. So it breaks through. And now I'm waiting for the end of time. Anyway, it pulls back to support. Well, I've already shown you based on the moving averages, but this line was resistance. Now it's support. And I use what's called a fat thumb. So my argument with you with finger is it's in support. Now, will they be able to break it down again? Two things could break it down. If China overreacts to Trump's tariffs and does something I can't even think about, maybe, or if they do another financing like the one they did with Roth Capital before, look how Roth killed it. Well, they'll kill it again. I don't think either of those things are going to happen, but what I think, and I've been saying it for a while, is you buy the dip, sell the rip. And I think this will bounce off here at some point. Now, the chart doesn't tell us the future, but my guess is it's got to bounce a bit. And it could be a few weeks. That's why when I pick a stock to focus on, I don't think finger is going to happen overnight. But it could. It could. I've seen finger go from $1 to $10 in a matter of, weeks, and it just is strong. That could happen again. Anyway, that's finger. Let me show you, GameStop. Insiders holdings of GameStop. Get ready, everybody. It's gonna squeeze. Oh man, guys, it's gonna squeeze. Oh man. Okay, Patel. Well, let's go to Yahoo. These are the most recent purchases. I don't want that. I want it's a lot of Chinese purchases. People who are Chinese. Major holders. I'll go with major holders. Vanguard, part of the criminal crew. Vanguard owns 39 million. BlackRock, part of the criminal crew, 35 million. State Street Corporation, another part of the criminal organization, 12 million. Geocapital Management, 7 million. Citadel Advisors, 4 million. Charles Schwab, 4 million. UBS, 3 million. Northern Trust, 3 million. Susquehanna International, 3 million. Bank of New York Mellon doesn't show. All right, let me go to, let me just ask AI, how many shares of GME does the greatest CEO of all times, the greatest, what's his name? Ryan Cohen own. And how much bribing goes on under the table from the shorts? As of a recent filing, Ryan Cohen, through his investment firm RC Ventures, owns 36.8 million shares of GameStop stock, representing a 12.1% stake in the company. That's less than the receiver's going to get to own of GTII. So you're saying he bought 500,000? So he's going to bring his position from 36,800,000 to 37,300,000. Bravo. Bravo. You know what he's doing, Adam M? I hope you're not. He's trying to get people one more time to get excited about stock. It runs up, and he'll do it financing. GameStop has at least $20 a share premium in it for this genius of Ryan Cohen. And eventually, that premium will be gone. And it's giving you a lot of time to buy the dip, sell the rip, sell calls, do anything except buy the stock and hold it, hoping for a squeeze. The only thing keeping GME up, unlike some of these other crap stocks, is Cohen and the shorts are, they still want, you got to have something to steal. If the stock's not up, what are you going to steal? Wake up, people. Short squeeze coming. Adam M wants you to know to wake up. A short squeeze is coming in GME. Dan Bongino. That's good. He said that. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. That's what I was, that PS1, that's what I was trying to say, is by letting it out, it would push against the front, but displace pressure against the front of the rocket. But what confuses me, what comes in? I mean, that's what happens when there's an atmosphere, because something comes in to fill that space. But what comes in when there's a vacuum? You are displacing volume, so you're sending volume into the vacuum. And yes, that's what I was starting to explain. Maybe that's what pushes against the front of the rocket. But that's in an atmosphere where the atmosphere races in to fill the vacuum created by the escaping gas. I'm missing something. So I'm stuck in CAUD. I'm extremely pissed at Peter Boards. I don't think you can blame him, although he's a little bit blind to Aubrey advisors in my judgment, but I don't think you can blame Peter Boards. I think you should be extremely pissed at Aubrey advisors and Chadron Financial. All you got to ask them is one question. You raised $5 million to pay the financial guys, and $5 million, and 2.5 million each, and the lawyers. Why didn't you raise 7.5 million? Stock was $10, $11 all year long on your valuation. Was it that hard? You're a multi-billion-dollar group. Raise 7.5. Raise 7 million. Give $1 million to collective audience. Give $750,000 to Logic, and keep $250,000 for your lunch bill. But why didn't you do that? You know why they didn't do it. They wanted Logic and collective audience to be destroyed. So Aubrey Advisor's real client, Polar, could benefit from shorting the stock. So no, I wouldn't be mad at Peter Boards. Peter Boards didn't set up Aubrey Advisors. So I don't think you can't even sell. You just want out. Aubrey was able to buy it at 10 cents. Look, I don't know. I don't know if you're a real person, but you're reacting totally like a human being. These guys aren't human, and that, so you're going to get out. I think collective audience is going to have to do a reverse split. They're going to have to do all this shit. But I still think collective audience can get to 20 or 30 cents. They come out. Look, the Peter Boards had a skiing accident. Um, that may have delayed the things he can do. They're going after a huge market, and he's built a heck of a story, heck of a team. His only blind side is he believes Aubrey advisors are honest. They're not. They're not. I mean, it's obvious they're not. Either that or they're just idiots. And I don't know, if you were Aubrey advisors, would you want to be known as idiots? Well, let me talk about collective audience in a second. Fingermotion is going to be attending another event April 9 in New York. That's good news, Drew. Do you think I should sell GBUX when it hits 10 again? Doesn't matter, stock, bullshit, buy silver. I agree with that. If you guys want to not only recover what you've lost and just buy something, set it and forget it, buy silver now. Buy silver. You won't be able to get mad at the CEO. You won't be able to get mad at manipulations. Space is not. That's what I think. That's what I think, John. It's not a complete vacuum. So even though they don't get much purchase in essentially a vacuum, that little bit of purchase can move the rocket. I think that's the answer. It's not a complete vacuum. I mean, it is true that the force is against the other side of the rocket, but that's what a rocket is. All right, let me see. I want to show PS71. Where is he? Where is he? Here, I want to show him something on. Where can I find it? All right, hang on. I know where to find it. All right. Why doesn't this? Oh, I know why. Because it's already there. All right. Yep, it's already there. All right, so hang on. I just got to go to PS71. I'm going to start out with the negatives, and it pisses me off. But then I'll tell you the positives, which I scarce believe. One, two, three, four. All right, PS71. This is on Logic. I sent this to Brent, who is now focused on Nixie. But he cannot, he doesn't have the time. He's focused totally on Nixie. He got hundreds of responses to the fact that Logic is on the expert market. So here, I just want to show you a couple things. Here is where DLQ completed the acquisition of Arbery SPAC. Look at the date. July 30, 22, Aubrey Advisors. July 30, 22. Okay. Look at Metal Lab. Post, this is LinkedIn. 10 followers. 10 followers on LinkedIn. Metal Lab. 10 followers. Oh, here, sorry, I got to show you the guy that runs MetaLab is Daniel Vinocure, Chief Executive Officer, MetaLab Essentials. He's got more followers than the company. It he became managing partner of February of 22, which also is when the company started up. And he speaks Russian. Let me take you off there. He speaks Russian, English, Spanish, Ukrainian, German, and Hebrew. And this is where he lived, Chief Executive Officer, Miami, Florida. So I think my opinion is Meta Labs is just a creation at the time by Aubrey Advisors or one of their clients to create a backstop so that they can get out. They shorted logic and they shorted collective audience down from, I mean, logic was as high as $2, but down from tens and 20s and 30s and 40s of cents in millions and millions and millions of shares. By arranging for MetaLab to buy and do nothing, it's a penny. So the reverse split's going to come. You know it is. They're going to go on NASDAQ. I'll give credit to Peter Boards. He's told NASDAQ to buzz off. So, anyway, that's my view of it. I think that Med Labs is the final part of the sting operation. That's my opinion. But what I heard today is that Med Labs has a lot of acquisitions lined up, and they are gonna move forward. But look, this was a 100 million share story. It's now 750 million shares. As they keep going, it's going to be 1 or 2 billion. That guy, Venecure and Aubrey, will own most of the stock, and Polar. You and I are going to be we're going to be crammed down as far as I can tell. But having said all of that, I assumed that logic was just completely finished. If the information that I heard today is correct, and I think it's a big if, I've already given you my negative. I think as it was presented to me, logic can get maybe to 20 cents a share. It's not the home run or even the single or double that we thought, but it might be a bunt or a walk. And we get a return. I don't know what my cost basis is very low now because I bought more. But for a longest time, my cost basis was around 21 cents because I bought all the way down. But I think I'm down in, pennies, if not, I'm really low because I bought a lot. So if it goes to 20 cents, uh, you know, it's not it's not what I was looking for, but maybe it'll give us something to work with to start again. Yeah, I'm not thrilled with Logic. That was a disaster, and I never should have trusted the guy running it. I just shouldn't have. He's a good guy. I think he's honest, but he always After years of work, he always pulls the trigger with a bad financing. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to understand why, but um, I think MedLab was set up at the same time as the SPAC. So to me, it's pretty clear there. It's it's just another piece on the chessboard that's being moved around to protect Aubrey's real client, which wasn't Logic or DLQ, it was Polar and the criminals. What a these are criminals making more money than any drug dealer and they're just wimps. Anyway, all right, so I showed you that. So then there's collective audience. Somebody was asking about Go Logic. Who said that? Who said that? I'm stuck at God, I'm extremely pissed at Peter Ward. The only thing to be upset with him is he believes they're doing an ATM with Aubrey. That's just more criminal activity. It's in the document. I haven't seen that document. I've seen other documents. There's derivatives, allows them to sell, allows them to manipulate. It just controls the price of the stock going back up. It screws shareholders. But he did get rid of, I think there were 3 Aubrey board members, or it was 2 Aubrey board members and a Chadron financial board member. And I think they're down to just 1 Aubrey member. But look, Aubrey's gotten collective audience where it wants it. You know, it's a shame. I don't think it's boards. I think it's Aubrey advisors. Somebody asked about, oh, here it is. Go Logic, but somebody else said something. I thought, see, as soon as I go over and get new pictures, it stops all of the questions above. So if I missed your question before this guy, I don't see him anymore. How does it stay at 7 and not move? Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of volume. Let me see where it is. Let me see where it is. Finger motion did pretty well after market. It's over $1.42. So the support is holding. Closing. I think what happens, Jake, GBUX doesn't trade in the aftermarket. I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. You know, GBUX has a pretty high market cap. It's $500 million. So hopefully the chart looks pretty good. Not that that means anything, but yes, I think GBUX looks like it can move shortly. All right, so Go Logic. There was, where did I see it? I can't remember where I saw it. I think I read it to you guys. But Go Logic did the reverse merger, or was supposed to do the reverse merger into recruiter.com. And that guy that wore the shorts that says he's fighting the shorts, he got 200 or 250,000 shares of Nixie. For why, I don't have no idea. But he some reason they backed out of that link up of GoLogic and Recruiter.com, and they focused on Nixie. And so I think there's an unfairness, I really do, that Logic tied themselves up with one company, $100 million supposedly, instead of going after the $1 billion they promised. And now they have the deal flow and the expertise going towards Nixie. But what I heard today is there is deal flow going to Logic, but it's starting at 750 million shares. There's no concern. In Nixie, at least the amount of shares is under 20 million. And all of that brain power, all of that talent is going to focus on making a dozen wealthy guys wealthier. And in the case of Logic, it's going to work out. They say they're going to do something. I'm pretty upset about it, and I think it's not right. So in that process, what GoLogic did is it was able to keep its assets. It didn't put the assets in Recruiter.com, but they sold their license. So at least part of the Nixie story is they own the license or a license of GoLogic's technology. Now, what I don't know is how exclusive that is. Does it limit GoLogic from operating itself? I have no idea. But as far as I can tell, this group of 12 people, 13 people, took the talent, took the technology, brought in somebody else, and they're working now with a company with, I don't know, 18 million shares out. That's Nixie, by the way. And so hopefully a lot of people own Nixie. I think Nixie has a chance to do something. On the other hand, maybe it'll fall flat on its face. But I think the Logic shareholders were done wrong. I really do. It's a case they needed money to keep the filings current. They doubled the amount of shares outstanding, and they raised the money from MedLab. To me, it's obvious that MedLab's there to lock in the loss for us and the gain for Aubrey and Aubrey's clients. But anyway, we'll find out. So the question is, does GoLogic have any value? I don't think so. I own GoLogic too. I don't think it has any value. Now, before you get upset on that, I had been asked to be the CEO of GTII, and I said yes. It was through the back channels. When I talked to people, including the receiver, I gave my ideas of how I would do it. And I don't know if my ideas filtered back. They're pretty obvious. Or the people had them on their own. I don't know. But when the receiver started angling to run the process of GTII, I called up and I said, look, people want me to be CEO. I was asked to be. I'm thinking of putting my name in. He said, oh, no. Please don't do it. Please don't do that. We've got it under control. And what he does is he cleans up shells to make them available. And he had a NASDAQ shell available that he had on offer for me. And I said, sure, we'll take it. So I said, okay, you want to do it, go ahead and do it. I figured I did him a solid. And then when I called him ready to go on the NASDAQ, he said, "Oh, I gave that to somebody else." This is the last time I've talked to him. I don't know what that means, you know. And now he's going to have 15, 20% of GTII. For what? Doing what? I don't know. It's the whole Wall Street system sucks. Everybody comes in who doesn't put deals together. They just push paper, make filings, claim they're doing work, claim they're taking risk, and then they own more of this company than you can ever own. It's just all rigged. Anyway, so PS71, I spent a lot of time thinking about what to do with GTII and how I would do it. And I know exactly what I would have done. I shared it. And that idea process is there in the GBUX story. It's the same kind of guys. So I don't know if my thought process filtered or it was just a bloody obvious thought process. I don't know which. But I am coming to a point. I still am ready to do what I was going to do with GTI. And by the way, I would never have carved out, at least initially, I would never have carved out 20% for myself. Or the guy from Chicago, Rhubarb, he was going to make $20 million for all of his glorious work. I never would have done that. If I had done anything, maybe I would have put something aside that then could be distributed to shareholders. I probably would have had to give myself some sort of incentive. I don't know how. Maybe buy shares or. But anyway, that would have been how I would have handled it. Because my goal would have been for all GTII honest shareholders to get a return. And I wouldn't put myself in front of that. I know that's probably all screwball if you're being taught how to look out for yourself and your wife and Wall Street, and then you see this group of retail investors as something to use. And a lot of you guys come on here and just crap all over me and are, it's not fun. But at the same time, that's how I see it. I think the retail shareholders and the original shareholders should be the ones that are well treated, not some guy that comes on late like me. Anyway, that's GTII. But that same strategy that I have, all the pieces are still in place if the resource market doesn't go out of control soon, which I think it will. If gold suddenly runs, if the deals I have lined up in gold and silver suddenly run, if the deals I have lined up in oil and gas disappear, well, then I can't do anything. But so far, I think I've held everything ready. And what I'm willing to do, PS71, is take all of that to GoLogic. And I've made that offer. I haven't heard anything back. I'm sure that once these 12 guys make a lot of money in Nixie, maybe they'll come back to GoLogic and try to do it again. And maybe that means there's no need for me. But if GoLogic is abandoned, I will make it happen with GoLogic. Now it may take 6 months, 9 months to get everything all, but I think my relationship with Brent is strong enough. I have a difference of opinion right now with him on logic, but I think he's a good man. I think he's honest. And after Nixie does whatever Nixie is supposed to do, if it does it, it's all in the press releases. I think he will have time to talk to me about GoLogic, and I can't do anything about Logic. I made myself available for Logic. I can't do anything. It's this guy that speaks 6 languages and lives in Miami. Do you think a guy in Miami is looking out for you? I think he's looking out for the shorts. Miami's the headquarters of the shorts and the funds. I just don't buy it. And of course, if you talk to him, he'd say, you think a guy out of Washington, D.C. is looking at, that's the problem. I don't know him. I don't know what he's got on his plate. But I think he's full. I think that whole thing stinks to high heaven. Anyway, I think GoLogic is worthless, but it is a shell, and I think it's current, and I have a good relationship, and I would have Brent on my board any day, or I'd work with Brent any day. I'd have him as my president or CEO any day. I just wouldn't let him make the final deal. That's all. Everything else, I think he's good with. But but all the strategy that they're describing at 2 of these companies is what I've described to the others, and that's what I would do with GoLogic. And but PS71, if it's not GoLogic, and I'm able to do what I want to do with a different public company, I'm going to check with attorneys about how I could accept people who invested in GoLogic, in Logic, perhaps GTII. I don't know all the investors there. How I could accept those shares maybe, and a little bit of cash, not a lot, in return for an early stage investment in the company, because I'd like everybody that invested to not be wiped out. That's what I'd like. I'd like people to make money, but I just hate it. And it's company after company after company. And it's easy to get mad at the CEOs because that's a human being. But the faceless ones are the ones doing it. The Aubrey advisors, the Shadrones, the lawyers representing them, and the Lynn partners, the Rubenstein partners, the Kramer partners, the Anson funds. These are the ones really doing it. And then the regulators look the other way. It just gets overwhelming. I think GBUX is set up for it looks like something's happening. Let me look at, there's not a chart to see on GBUX. But yes, I think GBUX looks like it could do whatever it's going to do very soon. I think this is great that Finger Motion is going to be attending this other event. I think it's fantastic, and Martin Shen works awfully hard. Do you think I should sell GBUX when it hits 10 again? I don't know what you should do for sure. I don't know what you paid for it, but that's a nice trade. If you bought GBUX at 2 and sold it at 10, that's a great trade. So if you're happy with that, sure, why not? But I actually think GBUX could go. Here's the numbers as I understand. You can make your decision. I'll tell you how I see it. GBUX has a float of around 1 million shares. I think it's 1.2 million, something like that. So a little over 1 million shares is the float, as I understand it. I can't prove it to you. There's no way to prove it. But my understanding is The real float is around 1 million shares. The counterfeit shares, the short, the naked shares, are 2.4 million. So you've got 2 shares that have to be bought back for every share in the float, 2 to 1. That's massive. Now, I know there's other ratios that sound even more massive, but if GBUX goes to 10 or if it goes to 12, other shorts will come in trying to suppress the price. They don't do any thinking, guys. There's no thinking going on. They have computers set up. Every time an over-the-counter stock goes up, they sell. If it goes higher, they sell more. If it goes higher, they sell more. And they don't own any shares. They own the regulators. They own Adina Friedman. She doesn't care. They own Chuck E. Cheese Cromwell. He doesn't care. They own FINRA. They own it all. So to them, you're just slaughter. And what they know is as the price goes up, eventually you're going to run out of money. So if they sold it at 10 and it goes to 12, they'll sell it at 12. And it goes to 15, they'll sell it at 15. It goes to 20, they'll sell it at 15. And it goes to 24, they'll sell it there. And then it opens at 17. And all of a sudden they're making money. So they'll sell more at 17. They'll sell more at 16. They'll sell more at 15. They'll sell more at 12, sell more at 10, sell more at 6. And they make money on the way down. It's sheer genius in its simplicity, its criminality, its corruption. It's sheer genius. And no one cares. That's the incredible thing. But what I think is going to happen with GBUX, let me say it differently. What could happen with GBUX is as they do that, as that dynamic happens, it goes to 10, it goes to 12, they sell more, they come in, they sell some more. These are opportunistic shorts, these are other shorts. And as the stock keeps going up, some of them are going to say, screw this, I'm going to cover and get out. I'll take my lumps and go. And then they buy back, and then the stock's higher. So it keeps feeding on itself. And then the whole thing becomes ignited to the upside because the people that are short right now have to cover all the way up. So I see GBUX as having the potential, because its daily average trading was 4,000 or 5,000 a day before all this started. I don't see people like the guy that got shares for his 200 million. He's not going to sell stock because he can't. He won't be able to. And he won't want to, I don't think. So anyway, you can sell it at 10. That's a nice trade. I mean, that's fine. But I think, and Benjamin, I don't own a lot. I bought 325 shares in my IRA. So not only do I not own a lot, it's not going to change my life because it's in my IRA. But I'm putting it out at $144. You know, I may, it goes to 15. I may just sell it at 15. I can always change my order. But I think the stock could go to 200 in a squeeze. What are the odds of that? I think the odds of GBUX going to 10, obviously, are probably close to 60, 70%. The odds of it going to 15 or 20 are probably 50 to 60%. The odds of it going higher than 20 are probably 40 to 50%. The odds of it going to 100 or 200, you're probably talking 10, 20, 30%. It's low odds. But to me, if there's buy-ins, there's so little available in the float, and there'll be more shorting, additional shorts come in who also have to cover. So I know you're thinking as the volume goes up, that 2 million shares short will get smaller and smaller right away. Well, not necessarily, because as the stock goes up, it might go from 2.4 million shares short to 3 million shares short. And then, maybe, and then they buy back and it's 4 million. There's going to be it could do like, I don't know, like HOLO or many of these squeezes. So I think GBUX could give you 10x, 20x, 30x. I mean, some of these squeezes out there were giving 100 or more. I don't know. We'll know more as it starts to trade. So I guess my final thought, Benjamin, is if whatever takes it to 10, I think it's going to take it to 15 or 20 or 30. Could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong, but that's my view. And I even go further. Whatever takes it to 10 could get it to 20 or 30, and whatever gets it to 30 could make it go to 200. So I put my order in at 144. It's not very logical. It's pie in the sky, but hey, it happens. That guy was a smart guy. I think Newton was the exchequer at one point, I think. And I think he's the one that put the ratio of gold in the vault versus currency at 40%, I think. I have to look that up. I'll write that down. But he was a man of many. All right, Ziggy. I like your picture. It looks just like you. Where would I buy silver? I don't think I still have it, but let me look. No. I took it down. I would buy what John calls constitutional silver. I would buy it through APMEX, APMEX. It's out of Oklahoma, I think. American Metals Exchange, or American Precious Metals Exchange, APMEX. But that's where I would start, is with constitutional silver. It's called junk silver. It comes in bags. It comes in rolls. It's just coins that used to be in circulation prior to JFK. That's prior to 1963. And a little bit earlier. They all ended at different times. And then there's 90%, there's 35%. Anyway, that's where I would start. My experience has been, when the mania comes, that's the first silver to go, and the premiums will expand, and you can sell those bags back with that big premium, and then buy and it may be simultaneously, buy silver with a smaller premium. John points out, and I looked into it last night, there's there's a app called CoinScan. You can, I don't think you should open the bags, but he points out you could open the bags and find out if any of the coins are really valuable. They might be. I don't know. I would leave the bags closed so I could sell it quickly. But anyway, and in an emergency, of course, you can open the bags. But that's where I would start. If I were buying U.S. Walking Liberty coins, silver coins, I think the place I would go, APMEX is fine. There's a bunch of other groups out there, but I think the place I would go, or I think you should go, is goldsilver.com. That's this. I don't know if you can't see it. It's that book. But anyway, Gold Silver, Mike Maloney. I think they're terrific. And particularly if you live in the United States, I would recommend going there. Goldsilver.com. The first one is APMEX. So if you're buying US silver coins, if you're overseas, I would still recommend US silver, but you can expand probably as your interests go. US silver is 0.9, I can't remember, 0.99 or 0.99. God, my brain. Anyway, US silver isn't quite as good as the Canadian, some of the British, the Austrian. So there's reasons maybe to buy some of the other. It doesn't matter. Everybody knows the ratios, so it all translates into the price. I like the US silver coin because it's highly recognizable. It's unlikely to be counterfeited, particularly if you buy it from Gold Silver. Or, the other names to buy in the United States could be Miles Franklin. That's Andy Schleckman. And I like SD bullion. And there was another group I used to use that went out of business. But you could also go back to APMEX as well. If you live overseas, you can look into, and you can do it here too. You can look into the Australian Kookaburra or the Australian. They have a bunch of different coins, but the Australian mint is quite saleable and recognizable. They have that bear, whatever that bear is. The Austrian harmonic is popular, particularly in Europe and the rest of the world, but no one really knows the Austrian harmonic here. I don't know. I would. Anyway, it's a good one. It's just, I don't know. And then the British, I forget the name of it, but the pound, they have the sterling coins. I forget I forget the name right now. But again, people don't really recognize those. So I think if you're a North American citizen, I think the U.S. walking coin, the Canadian, you get everything from the maple leaf, which is a good place to start, but they have all the wildlife series. I think those are excellent. And people recognize Canada, they feel comfortable. You could do Mexico. There is a Mexican coin, particularly if you're going to go south in any great migration. But I think if you're in the United States, the US coins, Canadian coins, Australian coins are going to do you the best. But USA is probably the safest. So anyway, where would I buy? I would buy at, like I said, I buy the constitutional coins at AppMex. You can buy, AppMex is like going to the Sears catalog. You can buy everything there. They have storage, so you can look into that. Um, uh, I really like the service, and I trust gold, silver, and I would buy my US coins there. If I wanted the Canadian or the Australian, you can do it at AppMex, but I might branch out into SD bullion. I like them very much. And I've never used Miles Franklin, but I really like, I think Andy Scheckman is really smart. So once you go into one, your Google's going to populate you with all sorts of them. John points out you can go to your local coin dealer and not pay a premium, or much of a premium anyway. That might be worth it. Now, if you're Akira, if you're off, I don't know, if you're in Southeast Asia or somewhere else in the world, there might be other places to buy. I don't know of them. But it comes down to storage. Where would you store? I would store in Switzerland. So that guy that I read to you all the time, Egon von Greiritz, his website is called von Greiritz, but it used to be called something like Swiss Gold. Anyway, it's Egon von Greiritz, and his minimums are really high, but on his website he refers somebody that you can buy through that takes less. I would look into that, to buy and store gold, silver and gold in Switzerland, and buy the bars. Don't buy the coins because you pay less of a premium. That's one idea. If you go to gold, silver, they'll store at Brink's facilities, primarily in the United States. I think they have some one or two places internationally. If you go to AppMex, I don't know off the top of my head. Same with SD bullion. Miles Franklin apparently, I think, stores in Montana, which has an interesting aspect. But there's no perfect place to put your silver. I think some of it should be with you at home. I like, for example, if you go to Gold Silver and you buy silver there, he has jewelry you can buy. It's not meant to impress your husband or your side chick. It's just meant to get gold out on the airplane. And he educates you. Anyway, I think Hong Kong makes sense as a place to store, but is it safe from China if we go to war? I don't know. Singapore, same thing. I think it's safe, but is it safe from China? I don't know. There may be other places. I'll leave it to you to think about that. There are a couple of places. I think one of them is called Goldfix. And let me write that down. I'll look that up. There's a couple of places, and it was started by not by Mark Farber. It was a different guy. I can see his face. Anyway, there's a couple of places you can buy gold and silver, and you get a card. So you actually is it Gold Fix or Gold Bit? I have to look it up, but it allows you to put money in, and then you can use your card to spend it if you want to. but it's segregated. You have to trust them that it's segregated in a separate account. I give you these names of people that I trust just because I followed them so long. Now, finally, I think the Sprott asset management is terrific. And they do a lot of their business through RBC. So the question is RBC going to survive a financial crisis? I don't know. You can't think of everything, but uh, I'm trying to think if he has any physical silver products. I don't know that answer if he sells coins directly, but he does have the ETFs. Do you know the GLD and SLV? I think they're majority owned by JP Morgan, or JP Morgan manages them. I have to look it up. And either BlackRock. Anyway, these are the criminals. These are the ones short, manipulating the market. If you go to PSLV, I can't do it with this setup I have. Otherwise, I'd be walking you through each website. But if you just PSLV, Paul, Stephen, Larry, Victor, physical silver, that's the Sprott Asset Management ETF. It's physical silver. It sells, I believe, still at a discount to the NAV. There is a fee, but he stores that silver in a segregated vault, and he puts the numbers of the bars on his website. So if you don't want to do it outside of your account, just buy PSLV. It'll give you all the bang for the buck. It will. It will. It already has. I started talking about PSLV. I think it was $7, 7 7/8, something like that. And now I think it's 13, 12 or $13. Um, Now he has a whole list of ETFs. He has gold, he has platinum and palladium, and he mixes and matches. He has a miners, and then Akira. I'm telling you, and I'm so worried about it because I'm trying to work on my ideas and bringing money in, but money is going to flow into the mining space like you can't believe. I've been talking about this for over a year with you guys, almost 2 years. But last year I was talking about once we get done with Nvidia and the MAGA 7, these herds of money managers coming around this year, their money's going to go into resource plays. There's going to be a lag, because what does Wall Street have to do at first? Wall Street has to build up research reports, um, magazine articles, websites, white papers, and put that all out there so that they don't get sued. And then they can start pitching it to their retail clients. And you're going to see so much money made in mining stocks. Even shitty mining stocks are going to make money. You're going to see Jeremy Frommer go into mining. You'll see Roger, the drum major, go into mining. You'll see that Greek guy go into mining. All these CEOs that jump in front of you. Frank Benedetto will start recommending mining stocks. That's what's coming. It's going to be mining, oil and gas, resources. And that whiskey cigarette voice, cigar voice, come on all your space calls to get you to buy that crap. That's where we're headed, and you make money. Should I buy silver on the market or in solid form? You can't buy silver per se all by itself on the market. You can buy PSLV. There are a couple of other physical ones, but I think Sprott is the one I'm loyal to, PSLV. The risk of buying it in your brokerage account is brokerage accounts, much like bank accounts. Do you remember the governor of New York, John Cornyn or Cornyn, whatever? He was a Goldman Sachs guy. I actually saw him once stuck in traffic in his limo in New York. He looked miserable. And I looked at him for a while just to study him. He was miserable. But he ran for governor. I think he was governor. And then he started a company called, oh, Lordy, RBM, R, uh, RJM, MRJ. I forget. It was a commodities company, brokerage company. He's the CEO. And he leveraged everything on a currency trade, as I recall, out of Europe. And of course, it went against him because just because you work at Goldman Sachs doesn't make you a genius. They just cheat. They leverage and they cheat. And so anyway, this company, MSM, oh God. Anyway, it got in total trouble. You know what he did? He took the assets from his clients and he met his margin call. I'm being simplistic. He met his calls on the futures. So when the whole thing unwound, guys and girls didn't have anything in their account. Now, they ended up getting it a year later, year and a half later. Lawyers had to get involved. Of course, the market went on. And so there was recovery. But the next time it might not be that good. In your brokerage account, you might be subject to an MMTLP like weight. So that's a risk. Is it a risk over the next 5 or 6 or 10 years? I don't know. I don't think so, but it could be. You got to be aware of it. I would not keep an account. Probably I wouldn't keep an account at Merrill Lynch. I think Merrill Lynch is going to be in trouble, Bank of America anyway, when the silver market skyrockets. But I don't want to speak ill. It's a great firm and they may have some protections in place. I personally think JP Morgan is dangerous, but he's savvy, so he's buying control of those ETFs. I would not buy SLV or GLD or any of those ETFs unless you're trading, trade them. But when the shit hits the fan, there's no gold and silver in there. It's all leased, it's all buffer, it's all crap. You can buy these and have them put in your name, but then you're out of the system and that gets difficult. If you could find a brokerage firm that would hold your certificates in your name, Morgan Stanley won't, Merrill Lynch won't, E-Trade, well, that's Morgan Stanley. The big ones won't. But maybe a regional company or one that's more designed for retail might hold it in your name. Well, then you got the best of both worlds. RBC might be one of those. I just don't know the answer. I have asked before when I talked to them. Anyway, when will GTI squeeze? It will not squeeze. There will not be a squeeze in GTII, in my opinion. It will not squeeze. What I think you're going to see next with GTII is they're going to get those shares clawed back. The single largest shareholder will be the receiver. I don't know, if I were the whale, I'd say, nah, screw that. We're gone. You can own 20% of a worthless shell. We're going to go find another shell. That's what I would do if I were the serious investors. I'd say, look, we can cap it off for your 90 days of work. What do you think it's worth? 5%? It's ridiculous, but all right, we'll give you 4.99%. But I would I'd cap it at 2.5% or something. It's just not fair. He's getting paid cash from the cash recovered. It's just not fair. But anyway, let's get off of that. And then they're going to bring in this app, and it's the Genius app. But how many apps are out there? I don't know. I've been involved with a lot of app companies, and I've seen the best of intentions, a lot of money. It's just got to catch fire. And what catches fire mostly now is OnlyFans and things that are similar like that. I don't see what GTI offers as catching fire. It might. It might. Now they're going to do some of those strategies, and it's going to be good for the CEO. I don't know him. I'm sure he's good, and the whales will be good. But I don't think GTI is going to squeeze. It had 400 million shares outstanding. Maybe it'll now have 100 million, 120 million. The receiver will own 20 million shares. And they'll start from that. But I would imagine it just depends on what the CEO does. If he's trying to catch out the shorts, maybe there's some strategies he can use, like not doing a reverse split, operating out of cash flow. Who knows? But I don't expect GTI to squeeze. And if it were to squeeze, you're talking months, if not years away. So thank you for your question. Yeah. GoLogic. I'll have to try to next time I'm in New York. I'll have to try to talk to those guys. What PS71? Everyone jumped all over their ass for having. I think they were going to get 2 million shares of GTII. It might have been more than that. I don't remember the number. Even if the deal, in other words, Toronto Mine's initial concept, and that's all it was. It was an initial idea. But remember, the receiver had no motivation to recommend Toronto Mine because the receiver was going to make his bones in this arrangement. The Toronto Mines deal, he wasn't. I'm going to think he wasn't as sure. I don't know. Maybe he would have picked it. But the Toronto Mines deal didn't. Look, no one knows exactly what whatever this new company is going to do either. But that's the one that got selected. But what's intriguing to me, these guys were going to get a certain amount of stock if the deal worked. And you know what? The guy from Chicago was going to take 20 million out first if the deal worked. This receiver is taking 19 million shares. And they're mad at these two guys for taking 2 million shares? I think that it's weird. It's weird how it's weird. So anyway, I don't know if the Toronto mine deal per se is the right one, but I think mining and oil and gas would be. Illegitimus ne carborundum. Yeah, my knowledge gets me a lot of negativity. There is a chart on GBUX. Where is the chart? Tell me about it. Tell me about it. I use stock charts and I can't get one. But problem is I'm pretty played out. Well, that's me too. I have a small position in Nixie and it's in my IRA. Um, uh, but anyway, ever forward. We have to bugger on. Depression does not live here. I don't know. Never better. I don't know what to say. What is your take on LCID? I don't know much about it. My understanding is that Tesla, obviously, it's a car manufacturer, it's electric vehicles, but it's also this automated driving. And Tesla has made this bet, apparently, I'm going to get it wrong, on driving by camera or something like this. Whereas other electric vehicles, automated vehicles, are using AI in a different fashion. It's like two different codes or something, and I'm not smart enough to remember exactly what I was listening to. But there is skepticism that Elon's choice is going to work. It might be the other one that is the better methodology. So I can actually see Tesla having some trouble from that standpoint. I do think Tesla really is about batteries, because if you could find a way to store energy and make the batteries interchangeable, I mean, you change the world. But I don't know that Starlink, the Tesla phone and the Tesla iPad, they could catch fire, particularly if they're hooked to Starlink. You could get the populations in Africa buying Tesla phones and iPads out of the box, leapfrogging the need to put up cell towers and complicated infrastructure, because it just all goes to the Starlink satellites. So I think Tesla has other things going for it that way. I've heard that this company BYD, I think it is, in China is really actually a bit of a dangerous company to be invested in. I don't want to say more because I can't explain what I've heard, but this one Chinese woman I listened to basically thinks it's a house of cards and it's going to come down. I don't know. I think China, on the other hand, has built the factories to kick ass in the automobile space, and they're building trucks and automobiles for less than 20,000. I think down to 10 and 12,000 a bit. And just think about it. Where's the population? Where's the growth? The U.S. is a mature market. To buy a truck here is $120,000. It's insane. And who in Vietnam is going to buy that? But are they going to buy a $12,000 truck from China? Sure. Perfect. India, So I think I don't know about BYD, but I think that my understanding is China supplies 50 or 55% of the world's vehicles now. Unbelievable. This is years, by the way. This started under Reagan. And it accelerated under William Jefferson Clinton. And we just sold everything to China because here in the United States, we were financializing everything from steel to automobiles to computer. Everything's financial. And we made China our factory for a while, but China grew up and became our competitor big time. And I think Elon's going to come out of this. I think Tesla's going to come out just fine. But having said that, I think the PE ratios of these stocks they're just idiotic. But I think you and I disagreed before. I don't know where you are now, but you were right, by the way. The S&P's come down, the markets are down. But I think at some point, to repeat myself, we're going to have a blow-off rally, and I think you could see a decade's worth of gains happen in 2 months. It could take 9 months, but whatever. It's going to happen in a very short period of time. And then that's it. Let's say the Dow goes to 65,000. And it, by the way, if it went to 57,000, I would consider my projection accurate. I'm using a higher number just to be dramatic so you remember I think it's going to go to numbers you can't comprehend. But once it's done, I think we could see 85%. Maybe not the first time it comes down, because the Fed and the United States military and the banksters and the Treasury are going to do everything to keep Larry Fink rich. And they're going to just try to drive it up for Steve Black and Phil Schwartz. And I bet there's a John Kelly in there somewhere. Virginia Beach. Did you ever stay at the Dolphin Atwater? I think that's what it was called, the Dolphin Atwater. We used to go to Virginia Beach. Virginia is a pretty good state. Oh, Yahoo Finance has a GBUX chart. All right, let me look. I never like Yahoo Finance's charts, but let me look. Why not? Yeah, there's a chart. I remember why I don't like it, because when you move, it moves. When I move my finger, don't. Yeah, the 5-year chart doesn't tell me much. So what about the 1-year chart? Those are my choices. Doesn't tell me much either. But I'd say that GBUX looks good on my read of the chart. I'm so simplistic. But it came down to that 320 area, and it creates a support line. But the whole move is a bit, it looks like the start of a parabolic move, frankly, or it could be, could be. If it gets through 7.5, there's nothing immediately that shows resistance. But back in 21, I don't know, somewhere around 850, I can't quite tell, 825, 850, there were peaks. And then in 22, it was, I don't know, 10 or $11. So, I mean, conceptually, you could have resistance at, let's say, 8.25 or 11, roughly. But I don't think so. So much time has gone by. Those people are gone, I think. So I think the number that I would look at is if it breaks 750, 7.75. This might be a weekly chart, actually. So let me go to 6 months. Yeah, okay. At 6 months, it looks closer to $9. Anyway, somewhere in there. To be safe, if it breaks through 10. Let me look at a 1 month. I can't tell. With some volume, I don't know what would stop it from going a lot higher. I think GBUX is our best chance to see a squeeze of any of the ones I've ever seen, because as far as I know, they haven't done any deal with Lynn Partners or Aubrey Advisors. All right, so John, Akira, listen to John. I'll leave this up for a little while. He's really knowledgeable on this, and his advice is excellent. So he's saying there's a LCS, local coin store in Palm Springs, and there's Mark One numismatics. That sounds like the guy that went out of business. He was a good guy, so it's not a reflection on him. I want to say his name was Mark. I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, so Mark One, sorry, I read that wrong, Akira. Mark One is a local coin store. So, do you believe Trump is waiting? I'll leave that there for a little for you to write it down. Mark One, numismatics, 70020 Cal 111 Suite C, Rancho Mirage, California 92270. So I bet you have it written down by now. Do you believe Trump is waiting for the new SEC? No. I think Trump's got a lot of things on his plate. I don't know what to think. BlackRock or Blackstone just bought Panama Canal for Trump. I think it's really unlikely that Trump fixes the short problem. As a sledgehammer. I don't think he's going to take a sledgehammer to it. But I do think he could put a honest person in charge. Atkins isn't it. Atkins not honest. In terms of the short selling issue, he's not the one. But to me, I've said it before, Brian, and I'm thinking of how I can get that message out. I think Trump should leave the New York Stock Exchange alone, leave the SEC alone, let them have their sandbox. But I think Trump should set up maybe a cabinet position and call it I don't know, MAMFA, Make American Markets Fair Again. I don't know. But just create a new government agency, which I think should sit at the cabinet level. But just start with the over-the-counter stocks and the NASDAQ stocks. And if the NASDAQ stocks are too big, and they don't want to be involved, let them move to the New York. But if they want to stay in the NASDAQ or the over the counter, get rid of Charlie Cromwell, Chucky Cromwell, get rid of Friedman, and make these do not have to be for-profit organizations. They don't have to be. They can be government-run agencies with AI or whatever, at least temporarily. A decade. Of course, temporary solutions always become long-term issues. But what I would do, there's not too many rules to change, but I would create that new government enforcement of the existing securities laws. I would get rid of the reg show exemption, get rid of high frequency trading, get rid of being able to sell using LLCs. I mean, maybe fully transparent LLCs, maybe, but just I would really make it a fair, level playing field, bring back investment. You would have investment banks come back into it. You could have mom and pop brokerage firms come into it, research, all of that. Just get it the hell out of Wall Street. And you'd have to probably pay commission for your trading, but that's fine. And I would start with these stocks. And why? Because this is the engine of Americans' ingeniousness. And that I think he could do without destroying the American financial markets. They already ignore the over-the-counter. Adina Friedman doesn't give a shit about any of the companies on the NASDAQ. So it won't change anything as far as Wall Street and the Blacks and the Finks and the Cohens are concerned. They'll get as rich as they ever did or they pretend to, with the other things they know how to do. But down in the over-the-counter market and the NASDAQ market, not if the big players want to leave, they can leave. But in those two markets, no short selling, no naked, just clean it up. And then that'll be the engine of American renewal. That's how I see it. But if he bludgeons short selling across the New York Stock Exchange, across the American, the big stocks, he'll destroy not only banks, he'll destroy hedge funds, he'll destroy the American financial strength. He'll destroy everything. He's not going to do it. And the banks won't let him do it. He won't let him do it. That's my opinion. I don't mean to be negative. PSLV, yep. Closed at 1089. All right, I didn't know. So it closed at basically $11 almost. That's nice. That's nice. How do you recommend selling GBUX? I have 6,000 shares. Well, number one, I would put out open orders. good to cancel to sell, because then you won't be dropping the bid. As the stock goes up, they'll hit your orders. So that gets rid of that problem. And I would put them out high. I don't know what you paid for your 6,000, but let's say you paid $10. I can't think you paid more than that. I would put out, it's up to you. I would try to get my original money off pretty quickly, but you know, maybe put out 1,000 at. I would use the Fibonacci numbers. Put 1,000 out at 21. Put 1,000 out at, I got to remember, 30. 8 plus 5 is 13, so 13 plus 21 at 34. Put 1,000 out at 34 plus 21, 55. Put 1,000 out at 89. Put 1,000 out at 144. And maybe put the rest out at 100. I don't know, or 200 or 150. Something, I don't know. You can pick it, but if you put GTC's orders out, as the demand for buying goes up, they'll take your order, so you won't be driving the price down. And I think you're going to be surprised, even if you don't put those orders in. If GBUX breaks out and starts trading, you'll be able to sell 6,000 shares in a heartbeat. You can write the ticket. But it's going to be fast and furious. It's going to play on your emotions if it really runs. I'm coming to the point of not even wanting to catch a short squeeze anymore. They may happen, but in all these stocks, once there's high volume, I'm inclined just to take what the market gives me on the sale. If it goes high, look at Magoo, MLGO. It went from nothing to 3, then to 4, came back 5, 6, then 20, then 30. I don't even know where it is now. But if that had been me, I probably would have been gone in my new me, I guess. I've probably been gone by $5 or $6 or $7. And I go, darn it, I could have made more. But I think you got to steel yourself to, oh, well, the other guy's got to make money. I'm glad I made what I made. And because these are all risky, at any time, the criminals get them back under control. And then you're sitting there, you didn't take any money off the table. So, now, Brandon, I have 325 shares of GBUX. It's in my IRA. I don't know what my average price is. I don't know. But because, there's anything I do with that's not going to change my day-to-day life because it's in my IRA. So that's slightly different. And because it's a small position, today I put my sale out. Over the last few days, I just did day orders. I put them out to sell the whole thing at 144. I think today I put it out at 132 because these shorts hear me say 144. So they probably are only, they'll put the extra effort so I won't sell at 144. That's what I thought this morning. I don't know what I'll put it in for tomorrow, but I'm going to put something in before the market opens. And I'll probably put my whole position out at the same price. And I'm not scaling it. I'm not trying to take my original money off, whatever. Ham's prediction, and I think he's pretty good at it. I think he's saying it could go to 40 or 60. Yeah, maybe I'll pick it. Maybe I'll put it out at 55 tomorrow. I don't know. It depends on how I feel in the morning. But uh, I will change the price. Let's say GBUX suddenly has 1 million shares in volume tomorrow or Wednesday. I don't know if it will. I'm just or Monday, and it goes to 27, and it's churning. You know, I'm not gonna be wed to my first order. I may change it, just get out. And Brandon, what I will do at that point is buy Railtown, RLAIF. I think Railtown, as one friend of mine said, I think I wrote it down. It was funny. I don't know if I did. Oh, he said at these prices on Railtown, the risk reward is off the rails. And it is. You're there. I think there's very little risk in Railtown, and there's huge upside. If I had 6,000 shares of GBUX, and let's say you were able to get out at I don't know. Let's say you got out at an average of 21, much lower. I know it's 126 grand. I would really be tempted to take $40,000 and go buy 1,000 ounces of silver. I'd buy two monster boxes. If I had 126 grand, I'd I'd go buy a lot of monster boxes. That's 500 ounces of silver. And I think, Brandon, if you can do that and change, I don't know if you're somebody that likes to trade all the time. Once you buy silver, you don't trade it. On the other hand, if it goes from 35 in this, as the stock market does its blow off rally, I think silver can go to 120. Maybe you sell some of it at 90 or $100 and wait. And because I think there'll be then come this collapse in the American markets, and they'll blame it on Smoot-Hawley, they'll blame it on Trump. It's not Trump. A lot of it's this last idiot we had. He belonged in a home. The government was run by a bunch of women and one pansy, the guy at the State Department. It was just Marxist, feminist crap. And we're paying for that now. We're paying for it. So I think, Brandon, you're one of the few people on this call, if you have the cojones to wait, we won't know until, and we'll all be talking about it. But if GBUX starts to run, let's say Ham's right and it goes to 40, 50, 60. Let's just say you get out at, I don't know, 32. And you miss out on some of that run. That's almost 200 grand. You could buy 5,000 ounces of silver and keep some cash. And if you're willing to do it, You don't have to do that fancy trade that if it goes to 100, 120, sell some, buy it back at 50 or 60, because you might not get that right. You might just hang on to it. I think silver um, will get, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. But I think silver will give you 100 times your money. It'll give you 10x, and I think it'll give you 100x, and it could give you 200x. But let's talk about those bigger numbers later on. But if you had 5,000 shares of silver and it goes to 125, you got 625. But what if silver goes to 300, 350? What if it gives you 10x? At 350 an ounce, you got $1.75 million. That's how I would think if I were in your shoes. I would try to get good returns on GBUX, and I might just immediately switch to silver. Now, if you're willing to try one or two more trades, if GBUX goes and NIXI is still cheap, I think NIXI has a good risk reward number two. And maybe you can buy some shares of significant shares of NIXI at $2, and that might run to $20. I'm not saying that's risk-free, believe me, but I think NIXI can give you $20. Might it only give you $6? Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out. The last two times NIXI ran, it kind of spun its wheels after it got to 50, 60 million shares in volume. And that might happen again. I don't know. But I think there's more to come, obviously, with the news on NIXI. The other thing is if you can stand it, you could buy a ton of Railtown. And I think Railtown it will go to 350 soon. Railtown's going to get revalued. I'm not in that space. I'm picking a number. How am I picking it? I guess gut instinct. You've got a company that has spent the last years developing their product. They're selling it, and they've stumbled across this massive opportunity to buy AI partners. And yeah, I mean, I think it could go a lot higher. I think what I did, I had done some arithmetic and I discounted every calculation and I came up with a number. And then I took a third of that number. And I think that's where I got the 350 from. There's no magic to it. But I think you can do that in Railtown. And I mean, just as an example, if you sold your 5,000 GBUX at, I don't know, 32, 21, whatever, that's 160,000. And if you bought, if you were able to buy NIXI, you could get, I don't know, 75,000 shares of NIXI. Should you? I don't know. I think there's execution risk in NIXI, but I don't think there's a lot of downside risk in NIXI. So the risk reward, it's the nice price. You have 75,000 of that and you sell, I don't know, even if you sold it at 6, you'd have 450. But I think it could go to 20, 25. I don't know though. So yeah, with NIXI, my inclination is just to get out when the volume's strong. But let's say you did it at 6, you have 450. let's call it and you're able to get into Railtown, let's say by the time this is all done, you get into Railtown at 40 cents. You buy 1 million shares of Railtown and it goes to $3.50. You're worth $3.5 million. You're one of the ones that can do something like that. And these are all imagination, of course, but I think they're very real. They're very real opportunities. Problem is they're all ready to go now. So can you move from one to the other, or do you just spread it out after you get out of GBUX? I don't know. A lot of that'll be up to the stock market gods, I guess. But you're in a good position. I wouldn't uh, necessarily get greedy on GBUX, but I wouldn't get out early either. I think you're going to be surprised what's in front of you. And if GBUX were to go tomorrow or the next day, I have no idea. I have no idea. It'll be out of the blue. I think you could be a really happy guy and you could change your situation. I don't know where Mount Jackson, Virginia is. Um, I've heard of that though. Is it on 81 or out 66 or I don't know where Mount Jackson is. The Dolphin Hotel. It was a dive back then, I think, but um, I was a kid. I was young, but I liked it. It was right on the water. I always liked the Dolphin. GBUX broke out of a bullish pennant. See, Lion knows how to read it. Lion knows how to read it. All right, it's 7 o'clock, and I think I'm going to go get something to eat. Um, so I think I'm going to sign off. Let me just see if there's any news to comment on. Trump gives stunning response to Wall Street bloodbath. See, I don't think that was a bloodbath. I really don't. It wasn't fun, but I don't think it was a bloodbath. Uh-oh, 7 stabbed in Washington, D.C. horror. Gallaudet University. Darn it. That's near me. A grandmother and her 2 grandmothers. Oh, bless them. Oh, just little sweethearts. So sorry. All right, let's move on. Um, there's news about Taylor not so swift. All right, let me see if there's anything else. U.S. stocks suffered their worst day since 2020. Tucker Carlson horrified as Dr. Mary Talley Bawden drops chilling statistic. Before her appearance on Carlson's show, Dr. Bowden, a Texas-based ENT specialist, rose to prominence in the medical freedom movement by speaking out. I'm not reading the whole sentence. She gained national attention after she was suspended by Houston Methodist Hospital. She has remained committed to the Hippocratic Oath, which only hypocrites take now. She's treated over 6,000 patients with the last disease without a single death. She pointed out data from the CDC explaining that over 38,000 deaths have been reported after something. She said under normal circumstances, the FDA would have pulled that prescription. Instead, they pushed it forward, adding that medicine to the routine schedule for children, even 9 months of age. They're not FDA approved, but they're on the vaccine schedule for children. 9 million American children have gotten the latest version of this prescription. 9 million, 12% of US children have been treated. It should have been shut down a long time ago. 9 million babies have had the blanks. Yeah. What are the long-term consequences of these prescriptions, these events? I don't see a ton of cancer in my practice, she said, but I have friends at MD Anderson, and they said they've never seen anything like it. The young people coming in with very advanced tumors. I think that's what we have to be worried about now. She explained that getting updated cancer data is difficult, but the anecdotal reports are piling up. It's hard to get up-to-date cancer numbers, but I'm hearing all sorts of things. What have we done? There's a doctor out there that gives a really scary projection. I'll save that for another time. Oh my God. It makes me sick to my stomach. All right. I'm not going to talk about it. It's just sickening. Climate science denier. All right. I don't see any news that's oh, there was somebody asked me a question. Let me see if I remember where I was going to go get the news. Let me see if I remember the question by reading it. No, I don't remember the question. Um, so it's too bad. It disappeared when the list went down. Yeah, I don't remember the question. All right. That's good, Akira Nova. Yeah. All right. I don't know anything else to tell you. So thank you for signing in today. Um, we just have to keep going. I think GBUX looks like something's up, so we'll watch it. Um, you guys are all ahead of the game if you buy now. All right. Ciao.